China is entering a battle against a wild army capable of turning entire fields into war zones overnight. Herds of wild boars, each weighing hundreds of kilograms, sweep into farmland, rooting through the soil like living plows and wiping out months of farmers' hard work. But this isn't just happening in China. From Germany and Spain to Texas in the United States, wild boar populations are exploding at a rate that's giving governments a serious headache. Countries have tried everything: electric fences, steel traps, professional hunting teams, even helicopters. Yet time and again, the boars return, nearly impossible to eliminate. However, the story takes an unexpected turn. Instead of treating wild boars solely as an agricultural disaster, China is finding ways to turn them into a high-value meat source and a new economic opportunity. So how did they do it? Let's find out with Mandarin Tech. Wild boars originally came from vast forests stretching across Eurasia and North Africa. However, today their range has expanded at a rate that truly concerns many ecologists. Their reproduction works almost like a natural multiplication machine. An adult female can give birth to 6 to 12 piglets per litter, and this happens twice a year. Within just a few years, a small group can easily triple in size if left uncontrolled. This explosive growth has turned wild boars from a normal wild species into one of the most troublesome invasive animals on the planet. In the United States, the wild boar population has now exceeded 6 million, spreading across more than 35 states. Texas alone is home to about 2.6 million of them, making it the wild boar capital of North America. During the day, they hide in forests, but when night falls, herds weighing hundreds of kilograms begin to flood into farmland. With snouts as strong as steel plows, they tear up the ground to search for roots, tubers, and insects while trampling everything in their path. In just one night, an entire field can be churned up, as if a convoy of farm machinery had passed through in the dark. As a result, the damage has reached a staggering scale. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that wild boars cause around $2.5 billion in losses each year to agriculture and rural infrastructure. In California, vineyards in Napa Valley have been forced to build kilometers of electric fencing to keep boars coming down from the hills. In Spain, farmers in Catalonia often wake up to find their corn and wheat fields destroyed overnight. Meanwhile, in Germany, potato and barley fields around Brandenburg are frequently turned into chaotic patches of overturned soil with crops broken and scattered. Faced with increasingly severe destruction, many countries have been forced to launch large-scale control campaigns to deal with wild boars. In Europe, where the species is widespread from Spain to Germany and Poland, many agricultural regions have built kilometers of electric fencing to protect their fields. However, the largest-scale control efforts are taking place in the United States, particularly in Texas and Oklahoma. Here, massive steel corral traps are set up along forest edges and cornfields. Each trap typically has a diameter of 10 to 15 meters, large enough to capture an entire herd at once. Inside, corn or fermented feed is used as bait, while motion-triggered cameras and remote control systems monitor every movement. When enough boars gather inside, a heavy metal gate weighing hundreds of kilograms is triggered to drop. In a single capture, 20 to 30 animals can be trapped inside one steel enclosure. When trapping alone can no longer keep up with population growth, professional hunting teams are brought in. In the southern United States, hunters track wild boars at night using thermal imaging and infrared equipment, allowing them to detect herds from hundreds of meters away. Some hunting operations can eliminate hundreds of animals in a single night, with hundreds of thousands removed each year across the country. In areas with extremely high densities, the hunt even moves to the skies. Helicopters fly low over fields and plains, while hunters shoot from above, chasing down herds scattering below. In Texas alone, this method removes tens of thousands of boars annually, making it one of the largest wildlife control operations in North America. Yet even with hundreds of thousands of wild boars killed each year, their population continues to rebound rapidly. While one group is eliminated in a field, others are still breeding and growing in nearby forests, making the battle between humans and this species seem as if it will never truly end. While many countries see wild boars as pests that must be eliminated, China looks at them in a completely different way, not as enemies, but as a high-value food source. In many mountainous regions of southern and southwestern China, wild boar meat has long been considered a delicacy. Compared to industrially farmed pork, this meat is firmer, leaner, and has a richer, more distinctive flavor. As a result, on the market, wild boar meat often sells for 2 to 3 times the price of regular pork. After the major shock to the livestock industry caused by the African swine fever outbreak in 2018, when hundreds of millions of pigs in China had to be culled and meat supply dropped sharply, many farms began searching for new directions. One of these was crossbreeding wild boars with domestic pigs, creating hybrids that retain some of the wild flavor while adapting better to farming conditions. From there, a new farming model began to take shape. In mountainous provinces such as Guangxi, Hunan, and Guizhou, many farms have enclosed entire hillsides and large forest areas with tall steel fencing. Each enclosure can span 20 to 50 hectares, large enough for herds to move in an environment that closely resembles the wild. Instead of being confined in concrete pens, the animals are released in groups, running across slopes, digging into the soil for roots, forest tubers, and insects beneath layers of leaf litter. Some large farms in Guangxi now raise between 3,000 and 5,000 animals in these controlled forest environments. The need to run on hillsides, dig for food, and forage throughout the day keeps them active almost constantly, resulting in meat that is noticeably firmer and leaner. One of the key reasons wild boar meat remains highly sought after in the specialty market. The difference is therefore striking. In industrial farms, pigs grow up in enclosed pens, fed fixed diets, and barely move. But in these forested hills, the herds run, dig, compete for food, and move continuously as they would in nature. They retain almost all of their wild instincts, except now, those instincts exist within a controlled farming system. In these semi-wild farming systems, the pig's diet is simple but highly effective. Instead of relying entirely on expensive industrial feed, farmers make use of common agricultural products such as corn, cassava, sweet potatoes, rice bran, and soybeans. Food is scattered across multiple locations in the forest or placed at fixed feeding points, forcing the herd to move, dig, and forage every day. By utilizing local crops and agricultural byproducts, feeding costs are significantly reduced compared to industrial pig farming. As a result, the growth rate of hybrid wild boars is slower. It typically takes about 12 to 18 months for one to reach market size. However, when fully grown, many can weigh between 120 and 150 kilograms, with long bodies, broad shoulders, and well-developed muscles, traits that create the firm texture and rich flavor highly valued in the specialty meat market. At the same time, the herd retains strong reproductive capacity, allowing farms to expand quickly without high breeding stock costs. After about a year, the pigs are sorted based on purpose. Strong and well-developed individuals are kept for breeding, while the majority are sent to market and supplied to processing facilities or specialty restaurants. Thanks to low feeding costs, strong reproduction, and attractive selling prices, wild boar farming in China has gradually developed into a market worth around $5 billion per year, turning a species once seen as an agricultural disaster into a significant source of income for many rural areas. But does turning wild boars into a farming industry truly solve the problem? Or is it simply creating a new, more complex challenge for the future? In this world where flavor is not only created but also nurtured over time, everything begins with how the raw materials are handled. After being brought into the facility, the pigs are carefully cleaned and broken down. The legs are directed toward whole-cured products, while the highest quality lean cuts are set aside, becoming the core ingredient of salami. From here, the process takes a completely different path. The lean meat is thoroughly cleaned, cut into small pieces from selected cuts, and fed into a high-capacity grinder where the muscle fibers are finely processed, laying the foundation for the final texture. At the same time, white fat, tender loin, and a small portion of offal are added to the mixture. These elements not only enhance richness, but also balance and deepen the flavor. Once the mixture reaches the desired grind, the mixing stage begins, where identity is shaped. The meat is blended in industrial mixers with sea salt, black pepper, white wine, garlic, and spices such as fennel or paprika, depending on regional style. Each producer keeps a unique recipe. Even slight variations can create a distinct signature. Despite the use of machinery, artisans still rely on their senses to control texture and aroma. After seasoning, the mixture is transferred to a hydraulic stuffing machine. Cleaned and lightly salted natural casings are fitted onto the nozzle, and under controlled pressure, the meat is evenly filled into the casing, forming salami with just the right firmness, tight enough to hold structure, but not so dense that it traps air pockets. Each salami is then tied by hand using traditional techniques. Even though the production line can produce hundreds of units per day, this manual step preserves the soul of the process. Once shaped, the salami enters its most critical stage, fermentation and curing. The curing rooms are designed as controlled microclimates, maintaining temperatures between 12 and 16 degrees Celsius and humidity levels of 70% to 80%. Over the next 3 to 6 weeks, lactic acid bacteria work silently, transforming raw meat into salami with a slight tang, a darker color, and a complex aroma. A thin white layer of mold gradually forms on the surface. Not a sign of spoilage, but a natural protective coating that helps retain moisture and regulate oxygen. Each day, workers carefully rotate every salami to ensure even drying and consistent structure. This stage demands absolute patience, where even a small mistake can ruin an entire batch. When the salami reaches its ideal maturity, it moves to the finishing area. Here it is cleaned by hand to remove excess mold, labeled with the production date, and wrapped in specialized food-grade packaging. Some premium products are additionally wrapped in wax paper to preserve their traditional character. Finally, the finished salami is packed into cartons and leaves the facility, beginning its journey to high-end culinary markets around the world, where every slice continues to tell a story of time, technique, and human craftsmanship. Alongside salami, cured pork leg also carries a rich and irreplaceable flavor. The legs are brought to the manual cutting area, where experienced craftsmen shape the product with slow and precise movements. Excess fat and skin are removed just enough to allow the salt to penetrate evenly while preserving the traditional structure of the ham. Before the salting process begins, each leg is assigned a unique identification code, like its identity throughout the curing journey. They are then moved into cold, dark rooms where temperature and humidity are carefully controlled. Here, each leg is completely covered with pure sea salt and remains almost motionless, while the salt gradually penetrates deep into the muscle fibers, drawing out moisture and initiating the development of flavor. After salting, the legs move to the shaping stage. A continuous roller system gently compresses the muscle fibers, allowing the salt to penetrate deeper without damaging the natural structure. Next, they are washed with high-pressure cold water to remove excess salt, while the absorbed flavor remains inside. The legs are then shaped using specialized presses to refine their curves and proportions. Once completed, they are hung and transferred to special curing rooms, where controlled environmental conditions begin the natural flavor development process. During the first 90 days, the cool and humid environment allows the outer skin to stabilize gradually, while the inner meat becomes more concentrated. This process happens slowly, without mechanical intervention, under the careful supervision of skilled workers. Next, the legs are transferred into curing cellars, a quiet environment where they remain for 24 to 36 months. During this time, natural enzymes gradually break down proteins and fats, creating a distinctive flavor that cannot be replicated by technology. The product loses about 30 to 40% of its weight, but in return gains significant quality and value. When the ideal level of curing is reached, each ham is manually inspected using traditional methods to ensure perfection. They are then moved to the finishing stage, where the bones are removed and the meat is trimmed to achieve an attractive shape and convenient form. Finally, the product is packaged using vacuum sealing or sliced by high-capacity automated systems. The thin slices are carefully arranged, sealed, and packed into cartons, ready to be distributed to high-end markets around the world, where each slice carries the value of time, technique, and human craftsmanship. From a species once seen as a nightmare for agriculture, wild boars are now taking on a completely different role. Instead of being only a problem to control, they are gradually becoming part of an economic value chain in many regions. But this story is not simply about exploitation or elimination. It is about how humans adapt to nature, turning a threat into an opportunity. Do you think this will be a long-term solution, or just a new, more complex cycle? If you find this content interesting, don't forget to like and follow Mandarin Tech for more fascinating stories.